Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that at the end of the day, all of us are human, and some of us even admit our mistakes. So before you rightfully decide to criticize Pirate Nippo Baby software, just remember this one small simple thing. And maybe you will change your opinion, okay? Did you know that he worked at Blizzard for 7 years? That's right, he worked at Blizzard for 7 years. Maybe you will think twice before saying anything negative about our favorite locale.
Help you? You mean the guy who's never used Game Maker Studio, doesn't know Game Maker language, and talked a lot of shit but was wrong?
What's kind of embarrassing for him is I have around 5 minutes of experience worth of Game Maker, and
Oh, and by the way, what's happening here, if you don't know? Well, it has gotten so bad for everyone's favorite Nippo baby that coders are now just openly calling him out for being absolutely trash at his job, aka coding. Oh boy.
I was still able to correct him on the data types within the game in my recent response video by simply referencing the documentation. So that's an iconic statement from him right off the bat. All right, we can continue.
Okay.
Should look at my comment underneath this video. Imagine screaming and shitting about alarms in Game Maker saying, why aren't these renamed when you literally can't rename them? Wild behavior. It's just another, like, YouTube grifter trying to fight for relevance, dude. It's all that shit is. All too common these days.
Have you ever talked about Pirate before this? Like, what got you interested in covering?
Yeah, so Pirate Software is currently trying to discredit a guy named Coding Jesus, who does slightly look like Jesus, true. And it's not going well for him. Because, again, Pirate Software is the type of guy who looks like he maybe knows what he's talking about until the moment that he talks about something that you know, and that moment you instantaneously understand, whoa, this guy's kind of fucking retarded, isn't he? He's just spouting pure nonsense. And finally, a coder decided to challenge him on that. And there's gonna be coding language here. And, well, most of us not coders because we did not decide to throw our lives away in meaningless garbage. Coding's for losers at the end of the day. Finance superiority, I'm all in, baby. It doesn't matter where you work, finance is gonna fire you, you dirty little coder. But I will be the bridge between the stupid, useless coding language and normal people. And that's because I can conceptualize things pretty well, okay? When someone asks me what do I know about coding, and my unironic answer is, I think you do it in Notepad, maybe? I'm not sure. There's brackets and shit.
Bring this.
Yeah, what got me interested in covering it is somebody who talks a big game and then I want to investigate, is what they've produced coherent with who they portray themselves as? Right? So when he says, I'm a
We all know the answer about Pirate Software, boys.
grifter, I think I've actually been doing this for longer than he has. I built a consistent audience producing content that plays towards the exact same theme, which is getting better at development. I never came onto YouTube claiming I'm the best. It's actually a learning journey for me as well, but I'm not understanding what I'm grifting on. I'm producing content that's consistent with my channel. I'm not changing my message.
I can explain that. Anyone who is negative towards Pirate Software is just a dumb grifter. In his own words, obviously. We know that this is completely false, but, I mean, he needs to discredit people, and since he has no way of factually discrediting people who are saying that he's a horrible person, he's just gonna try and lie about the people saying things about him, because that's the easiest and pretty much only thing that's left in his arsenal at this point.
To cater towards somebody else.
Have you covered other people in, like, quote unquote coding drama in the past?
I haven't covered coding drama. I've done code reviews of other people in my Discord community, other individuals as well, my own code. I've done coding live streams. So when I saw somebody that had a dev live stream that talked about video game development, I wanted to check it out. And little did I know it would be a goldmine because it would expose him for his inability to remain congruent with who he portrays he is.
Manually setting all to 0 with 8 lines. Those were set to 0 because it was ending the alarms. By setting them to 0, you're actually setting the alarm to off.
So pause there. So his chatter actually corrects him by identifying my critique. As a developer, you shouldn't be copying and pasting alarm, 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 alarm equals 0 and setting it to 0 for every object in the array. So what he's doing here is a classic example of deflection. He pretends the chatter asked, why do you set the alarms to 0 instead of the question, which was, why don't you iterate over them in a for loop? A for loop is a very basic coding construct. If you're iterating through a consecutive set of numbers, you definitely want to use that. It's the perfect scenario for a for loop. But he pretends that he didn't understand the question and then tries to answer something else.
I'm also trying to think of like how we can make it easier.
Yeah, so there's a lot of coding language. Who would have expected? Let me explain what I think just happened here. So Pirate Software is putting alarm 0 for some reason for objects in the file. And you don't need to do that for every specific object, this guy's saying. You can just somehow do it for every object at the same time or something like that. Effectively, Pirate Software is doing something that only a beginner would do because he doesn't understand basic shit, it sounds like. And what Pirate Software here is doing is the classic Pirate Software line. Again, he does this constantly. We have so many videos covering it, it's absolute insanity. And some people still fall for it, okay? He's gonna take a critique of him. For example, oh, why do you ban people about Maldivia's fig tree? And then he's just gonna say, oh, I don't ban anyone, even though he has banned. That's like a blatant lie. But he's sometimes gonna do it a little bit differently. He's gonna be like, oh, let me explain why the Maldivia's fig tree situation. And then he's gonna explain about stuff that no one ever asked and he just is making up. You know? Oh, how about that time when you doxed the person? Doesn't even mention it. He just says, "Oh yeah, this was my avatar in a different game, and that was my old avatar, and that's it. I never actually tried to hide it or things like that." That's how he does it. He just tries to he doesn't answer the question you asked. He answers a question that is unrelated to anything, but it sounds good when he answers because that doesn't mean anything. Pre-Pirate Software basic stuff right there.
For people that are outside of coding to understand. So there's essentially a much more efficient way to do what he's doing that a rudimentary coder would understand to do. And he completely reshapes the question to avoid having to admit that.
Yeah, another point as well is if he did not want to use a for loop,
there's also the possibility that Pirate Software had no idea that that's even a possibility, which honestly seems more likely.
Instead of associating an alarm with an index like alarm 0, alarm 1, alarm 2, because as somebody reviewing code, it's not very evident what that actually refers to. He could have set alarm and then had a variable called left and set it to 0 and indexed into that alarm array or alarm data structure with the variable left. So I would know that this alarm, whatever it is, it's associated with the left boundary of his character or object. So there was two approaches he could have taken here. Both would have been better, but he chose to ignore both.
Can't see your comment? Did he delete it? That'd be even funnier. He deleted the comment? That would be even funnier.
Yeah, I didn't delete the comment.
It's still there.
That's... Yeah, there you go. It's still there.
I wrote this underneath this video.
Him talking about people like taking this way too seriously and having these gripes, and he is taking time to downvote the other comments, the only other two you can see on screen.
I think the more important thing...
That's so classic Pirate Software, by the way. You can see downvoted his comment, upvoted, bruh. Oh, classic Pirate of his egotism.
Thing here is that when he went to, oh, he definitely deleted my comment, that was a bit of projection. I think that's probably the first thing he thinks about when he thinks of a comment that he doesn't like. And then later he realized, oh, you didn't delete I don't delete comments. The only time I'll delete a comment if it's like a death threat or something extremely egregious. But if you disagree with me, I have no problem with your comment remaining up and people discussing it. It's more engagement for me. The only reason he mentioned that he thinks I deleted his comment is because that's what he does. You go on his live stream, you'll see somebody comment hashtag stop killing games, and then in 3 seconds that comment's gone. His moderators have taken it out. So a lot of this is projection as well.
I think he was probably expecting, as you know, a lot of his comments, even when he's getting ratioed, end up climbing their way to the top, but they aren't. Matter of fact, I was trying to find the comment and I had to confirm with Coding Jesus, he had to search for the comment because he couldn't find it himself because it's been absolutely buried because nobody is taking him seriously. And maybe he was just expecting that it would go to the top, like most of his stuff has done for, I don't know, the last couple of years. And then secondly, if I get hate comments, I don't even react to them. Like, what's the point of even downvoting them? It doesn't matter. They have some sort of criticism or
Downvoting doesn't matter, that's true.
they're making fun of me. Like, I'm getting a bunch of like milking comments for going over this. Okay. Like, I can't even waste the time to down.
Bro, no one cares about you, okay? We care about everyone's favorite Nepo baby, okay? Skip.
Doing it.
Sprite Spark is not a magic number. It's a direct reference to an asset file called Sprite Spark. This is how GameMaker allows you to link sprites and other assets. When you want to use a sprite, sound, or other object, you call it by.
Ah, this is, by the way, not something only Pirate Software does. This is what other people do. They put out a comment, they put out a tweet, they put out whatever, and if they're streamers, they're gonna be like, okay, guys, here's my tweet. This is what I wrote. They're not gonna exclusively say, a lot of the times, go upvote it, go retweet it, go this and that. But the point of that is so people upvote it, reply to it, retweet it, and do things like that. So, you know, he wins. He wins because this is just sending the crowd in the direction that you want without, you know, saying go there. You know, you're still kind of pointing the finger, but the finger's invisible. This is that tactic. A lot of streamers in general use this. There is no reason to ever do this unless you want people to go and do a certain action, like subscribe to my YouTube channel and donate money to me. I don't care if you're poor. I'll take the last cent you have. Beautiful.
By name.
This is disingenuous at best and an obfuscation tactic at worst, because as you can see here, there's a lot of numbers here. It's very obvious when I'm talking about a magic number. I'm talking about things like 1, 0, 15, 270, 360. I'm not talking about what my mouse just happens to be highlighting, which is SPR Spark.
That's
for
like,
whatever reason.
yeah. That's like him saying, "Oh, look, he's talking about and giving me shit about my turtles." And the part of the video is talking about all of the zebras, and you just happen to
Well, the numbers mean something, but what do they mean? No one knows. Okay, that's what the point is here.
have your cursor sitting on a turtle.
Yeah, and that's actually not my cursor, that's his. I just realized, because that's his video that I'm looking at. I can't highlight his code in his video. So he has his cursor on Spark, and I'm talking about all the numbers around that, but he's zoning in on Spark. It doesn't make sense. I don't know why he decided to do that. He has this repeating theme where somebody gives him a question, and then he pivots to something that somebody didn't even ask or address to try to get out of that question.
Changing this just creates like.
Again, it's not even getting out of that question, okay? If someone asks me, I don't know, a basic question, I can't answer that question, or I can answer that question, but answering that question in a normal way is not beneficial to me, I might as well shift it to something else that makes me look amazing. That's what he's doing, okay? He's answering things that he wants to answer that sound good. Very typical, by the way, streamer, YouTube, everyone behavior. I do that also, by the way. Bet you didn't notice, you little dirty boy.
Of obfuscation without improving usability or performance. Alarms are internal to individual objects and only reference that same object that they're inside of. When you see alarm 0, it's hitting the alarm 0 on the left side of the object there. We cannot rename these as they are tied to the object they are placed in. Setting an alarm 0 causes that alarm to stop.
So my critique wasn't against the name alarm. It was against what he needed to explain to me to make clear. And that is that the index 0 corresponds to the alarm on the left. The fact that he needed to explain this to me is already a concession that it wasn't clear enough in his code. When you look at alarm 0, you have no idea what that alarm belongs to. What is 0? If he declared a variable called left, set it to 0, and then indexed into the alarm data structure or alarm array or alarm construct, whatever he'd like to call it, then I would know at least that he's trying to represent a direction. But as it stands, it's not clear.
And your best way to explain it, so a lot of the contention that I see, a lot of the criticism that your video has received is that a lot of people think that, okay, but in a perfect world, Thor Pirate Software is not going to be sharing this code with you. It's only for him, only he needs to understand it. So outside of, trying to explain these points to you.
Oh, that is a stupid thing to say about, honestly, anything. It doesn't matter if it's coding, if it's, I don't know, even fucking writing. The idea that, only you need to understand what this is, works if you're trying to write a code, but not a code, but an actual, code where 1 equals A and that's how you write, So, something like that. But in everything else, there is probably already an agreed best way to do things because it's the common and easiest way to understand things. So you doing things in a unique way doesn't actually mean you're doing it in a good way. It just means you're doing it differently than the average. And that different way is probably not better than the average in most situations. So saying that pirate software can do it in a retarded way, yeah, he can do it in a retarded way. He can code in a retarded way, but that doesn't mean he should actually be coding in a retarded way.
Because they're clearly, harder to unless he directly explains to you what's going on. Why else would it be important to organize it differently or make it more readable?
I think the big
Also, by the way, the fact that this guy sells himself as a coder and that he teaches people how to code and that he's effectively like teaching people messy, ineffective, convoluted ways to code already kind of completely destroys his credentials.
biggest point as to why it's important to make it more readable is that over time, as you code and you implement bad coding practices, you accumulate something called technical debt. Technical debt is a concept, for those that are not technical, where you make choices today that are not optimal in favor of expedience, and those choices end up biting you back in the future. So the more you copy and paste code, the more you couple classes together, the more you make decisions for the sake of getting something out the door as opposed to doing it right, the harder it is to continuously progress because you're going to need to constantly looking back behind your shoulder and changing things which might have ripple effects throughout your code. Maybe copying and pasting in this case is fine. But what I'm trying to get to here, because I have such a lack of actual evidence of him coding, is that there is a very obvious pattern here. A pattern of poor coding practices, which might or might not be the reason why this game has taken 8 years to develop.
Essentially, I mean, a lot of people understand like spaghetti code. If you cut corners at the beginning, think about like maybe even League of Legends. And I'm not, here to give
Think about Minecraft.
League of Legends shit. But an issue that can arise from doing something like that is that when you push out an update, suddenly something that has nothing to do with the update is now completely broken or doing something it shouldn't be. And that's because you didn't code it properly to begin with, which just ends up making things take way longer than if you had just done it right and taken, a few extra minutes, a few extra hours at the beginning.
Yeah, and that a few extra hours might just mean more robust test cases. It might mean you took a shortcut in how you wrote a class, and now it's tied to something else, and that tie has secondary or tertiary effects on that object now. And that wasn't picked up because you
Doesn't tertiary effectively mean secondary? What does tertiary mean? Tertiary. Many treachery. What? Okay, I guess Google doesn't want us to find out what tertiary means. I'm pretty sure tertiary was like the same as secondary, or was it third? I don't remember. Anyway, that's a little bit interesting. Question mark.
have poor testing, or because you didn't integration test enough. So yeah, that's correct.
Data types are not defined in GameMaker. You cannot define a boolean. You can use 0, 1, or true, false at will. It doesn't do anything. None of this matters in this language.
The Boolean and the data types.
Okay.
So I'd like to interpret this in two ways, because what he could have been saying here.
Wait, actually, so Pirate Software made a comment. It has 60 likes. This guy has 3.2k likes. Oh no! Pirate's ego will never recover from this. Oh no!
Says data types are not defined, is that you can't create your own custom data types, which is indeed wrong. You can create structures in GameMaker. It's in the documentation. Search up structure.
Okay, now I have no idea. He's just speaking in sentences that are filled with specific programming terms.
And constructors. But maybe he wasn't referring to structs, maybe he was referring to booleans, which also just isn't true. In one of my more recent videos, I investigated that. I pulled up the GameMaker documentation, and I read the boolean instructions. So you would even be able to play this section of the video. I think that would probably be better. He makes the claim that you can't define a boolean in GameMaker because GameMaker itself doesn't have a native boolean type in its scripting language. In other words, it interprets...
What are we calling things in programming by food names? Bro!
reals as booleans. Now, to reconcile the fact that he used a boolean in his code...
Golden bullions? Wait, is it actually... Are they mispronouncing bullion and just saying bullions? What is booleans an actual different complete term that just sounds like a food or a gold bar? What the hell? See, this is why I don't respect coding. It's fucking stupid.
With what he said, I decided to do what any developer would do, and that is I
And yes, I have learned from Pirate Software, anything I like is stupid.
consulted the documentation.
And if you comment about that, I will just delete the comment.
So if you go to data types in GameMaker, oh, look at that. You are also provided with constants, true and false, which can always be used in your code to prevent any issues, should the native Boolean type be defined later. So GML defines constants true as 1 and false as 0, and the documentation itself even recommends that you use true.
Wait. There was actually Boolean written there? How is it written? Boolean. Oh my god, I have no idea how Boolean is written. Okay, let's Google that. Boolean. Press images. Oh, why is Google just... Is this some kind of new AI thing? I swear it didn't do that previously. Boolean. Okay, let's do it again. Yeah, golden Boolean is different because here in pictures I see a bunch of X and Y functions that involve math and shit. Okay. Saved. Programmers, you get to live one more day. I'm not pulling the liver on your asses.
Be used in your code to prevent any issues, should the native Boolean type be defined later. So GML defines constants true as 1 and false as 0, and the documentation itself even recommends that you use true and false instead of reals in case that association between a Boolean and a real ever gets changed to a Boolean and some other native definition of...
By the way, what I'm doing here, I just do because I'm going to stop doing it. I'm explicitly trying to bait fucking Pirate Software tier programmers that are going to be commenting, "What kind of idiot are you not understanding basic programming languages?" Every single fucking person who tries to define how smart another person is by how much of the stuff that you know about that these people know is a fucking idiot. I literally never try to define how smart of a person is based on finance. But in programming, mother of God, do I see a lot of people doing it. This is not even a Pirate Software thing. This is just a completely generalized autistic thing where programmers feel that they are better than everyone else. And if someone says, "Oh, I don't know how to code," they're like, how can you be that stupid? How can you not know how to code? Slave.
a Boolean. So in other words, if they ever replace the aliasing of bools for reals with bools for actual bools, they recommend that you use true and false. But we know he's not going to concede on this point or admit the fact that he was wrong, given his track record. So
yeah, we know that Pirate Software will never concede on any point. True.
let's move on to the next claim.
Since it's like, coding speak, essentially, let's try to boil down just essentially what it is for people who don't have the coding language. So
He's wrong that Booleans don't exist.
Destiny crashes out on me. Holy shit, is Tectone actually gonna go against Destiny? Okay, listen, Destiny's all the bad things that you don't like, but Tectone has absolutely no shot against him.
The documentation says to use Booleans as true and false because while they are currently aliasing integers, in the future, GameMaker may support a native Boolean data type. So the documentation itself, which you can see in my video, specifies please use true and false because in the future, they might actually refer or be replaced by native Boolean types instead of integers. Yeah, as you can see the highlighted text here. You're also provided with constants true and false, which should always be used in your code to prevent any issues should real Boolean data types be added in the future.
the expectation is that that is going to be integrated in the future, and you should act accordingly as though that is going to be true, because number one, it's going to work for you, and number two, that prevents you from, your code from complete.
Okay, listen, I just kind of want to hear Pirate Software speak. We already know Pirate Software is wrong about everything.
Zero. Now, if you're totally new to programming, or even if you're a seasoned developer, you look at a variable called question true, and then you see it being set to a number. You're asking yourself, what's going on? First of all, why is the variable called question true? That already implies
Well, the variable question too is purely depending on the programming language's default settings. If 1 equals 1 boolean by default, then the question becomes false. And it doesn't matter if what kind of value you put in there anyway. It's always going to be false. This is an easy way to alleviate these beginner mistakes in coding and programming that you take. See how easy it is to spill this fucking bullshit? Some of you just got probably confused. Wait a minute. Those are programming words.
That the result is true. Why would it be false? That's confusing. But also, why would it be a number? Question true should probably be true or false. But for some reason, he's setting it to a number. The documentation states, currently, 1 and 0 is interpreted as true or false. But regardless, please use true and please use false, because in the future, if we add a native Boolean type, they will be switched out. So true and false, instead of being 1 or 0 as the underlying type, it'll be an actual Boolean type.
What he's
Actually, I kind of understood that. So Pirate Software is being ridiculously inefficient. He's effectively making something that is kind of by the people who made the programming thingamajiggy have already said, hey, you probably shouldn't do this because, yeah, we're probably going to switch things about in the future, and if you, then everything you may have made is going to be fucked. And Pirate Software does not do that. Very smart. I mean, exactly what you would expect from everyone's favorite Nepo baby. Okay, listen. I'm kind of more interested in that Destiny Tectone thing now than actually Pirate Software, because all of this is coder language, and we're just here because Pirate Software is a piece of shit. Simple, ain't it? And I mean, it's a little bit too much boring programming stuff. Well, pictures, whatever. Anyway, that was Quinteo. 10 out of 10. Oh, bye.